Hello, everyone. My name is Teun. I am Growth Director at Litentry and have previously been working intensively on the product of the Identity Hub. Today, I'm very happy to take you through a learning webinar that will teach you a lot more about the complex but very intriguing topic of decentralized identity. Strap in for a 30-minute webinar where I will explain you the intricate details of what it makes to adopt a decentralized digital identity. We have some campaigns and quizzes running on this topic later, and we invite you to start exploring and experimenting with the possibilities that decentralized identity offers to you. So, without further ado, let's just dive straight into it. What is our digital identity really? Let's start with unpacking that. Our digital identity currently is very fragmented, especially in the digital world. It is built up out of these thousands of data points. Your social media activity, the feeds that you have been writing on the public web, all of the different interactions that you had with your friends and family, your employers, you're leaving a lot of traces of data points in a data galaxy, as we like to see it. Now, as I've mentioned before, all of these data points are often inherently social since we're interacting with other computers, bots, friends, persons, systems, and profiles. And all of our experience of our digital identity is generated through these interactions with others. Then another aspect of our digital identity is that it is all stored on databases or servers. Servers and databases that nowadays also become blockchains. And the cool thing about this is that we are no longer relying on memories or perception to define our identity, but on proofs and achievements that can be sent over, that can be composed, that are portable across our adventures on the web. Now, at Litentry, we would like you to upgrade your digital identity with some extra characteristics. We would like your identity to become fully sovereign, which means that you are the only one in control and that you don't rely on any third parties for your identity to exist. We would like your identity to become decentralized, meaning that it relies on decentralized networks that can be censored and where you truly own your own data and history. And we would like you to operate or at least experiment with pseudonymity, where you not necessarily go fully anonymous, but adopt a profile that can still accrue reputation and offers you some of the benefits that your federate or governmental name also carries. Now, this is the type of digital identity that allows us to build stronger global connections in a new world. It paves the way for identity-based social and economic innovations in a new era of the internet and an increasingly internet-based society. So, who's going to be our companion today? I want you to meet Alice. Alice is going to be our companion on the journey, and she's been building some profiles on traditional Web2 social media accounts such as Twitter, Discord, Reddit, and GitHub. But she's also active in Web3 and has been trading some NFTs, played with some DeFi tokens, and is now diving deeper into the wondrous world of DAO governance. She seems to be truly the perfect fit to adopt a decentralized identity. Now, let's show you why she would like to do that and why you might like to do that too. So, are you ready to upgrade to a decentralized identity? And what does that mean? It means that you're truly getting ready for a next version of the internet. A version of the internet where we own our own data again, instead of the platform based internet economy that we were used to in Web 2. Decentralized identity carries these natively internet enabled characteristics, such as encrypting messages that you send, but also receiving money in the same identifier that you carry around, also sending money over blockchains or other systems, but as well store credentials. Credentials is something that Litentry focus on heavily. Credentials can be seen as a badge, a statement, or a certificate that you carry on online and that has certain characteristics that we are lacking in our traditional identity systems. So a decentralized identity allows you to store credentials, but also prove credentials. Let's zoom deeper into that later on. So let's start with making you familiar with the basic principles of a decentralized identity. What are the building blocks that we are requiring to adopt that decentralized identity? Let's zoom in into all three of them. The first one being the self-sovereign identity framework, which is a framework that helps you to truly self-own, be self-sovereign, and be in full control of your identity data. Blockchains or decentralized databases, as explained before, are the ground layer that allow you to transport data in a decentralized fashion. And then we would like to offer you an additional layer of privacy that just truly enables you to be whoever you want to be on the internet. Let's unpack each of these three pillars of a decentralized identity separately. The self-sovereign identity framework. If we want to make Alice truly own her own data and identity, then she needs to adopt a self-sovereign identity framework, where she holds her own data in local storage in the form of credentials and uses a wallet to interact with the consumers of her data. Now, with a self-sovereign identity, the data is in Alice her full control. The data is always available, and the data can be selectively disclosed to who she wants, when she wants, and what she wants. The data is also shareable and transportable across networks. Essentially, a self-sovereign identity doesn't depend on third-party providers such as Facebook, Google, or Amazon to centrally manage or store your data. So, what do we actually need to manage a self-sovereign identity? Well, we need two technologies that Web3 and crypto is already very familiar with, such as the electronic signature with the help of a private key, which signals a secure identity reference of the key owner or the individual, and distributed ledgers or blockchain networks, which function as a shared registry and an anchor of trust between all parties. This is the biggest advantage of anybody who has been playing around in the crypto ecosystem. Self-sovereign identity has been around for quite a while, but had a hard time being adopted since most of its users were very new to working with private keys. And crypto and Web3 users have been getting more exposure to that concept. Let's zoom into the power of a private key, since it is a key that authenticates or proves the identity of the sender or creator of a message. It proves the integrity of the messages, but it can also detect alterations, and it validates that a particular individual truly sent a message. These abilities to encrypt and decrypt messages and send transactions with a key pair provide us all the new identity functionalities that we were missing in Web 2. So private keys are truly a secure digital identity reference for anybody who is playing around in Web3. And since Alice has taken her first steps into Web3, she's now familiar with blockchains and key pairs. She owns her public keys, which she uses as a reference to her blockchain addresses, and her private keys to enable any type of the new abilities that we just discussed. The use of key pairs instead of passwords give Alice her identity new functionalities such as sending and receiving money, storing credentials, and signing or encrypting messages. And this is also truly the evolution of digital identity. The adoption of key pairs and wallets is the biggest advantage of Web3 users in their data sovereignty, in their ability to truly own their own data. If we look at the internet throughout the years, we can see that in Web 1, or the first version of the internet, we were operating with usernames and passwords in an information economy. In 2010, we jumped over to an app-based and platform-based economy where you essentially log in with passwords from big platforms or tech giants such as Google or Facebook, which is why we called it the platform economy. With the advent of blockchain, you can start signing in with your key pair. You use a wallet to enter the world of distributed networks in which you are part of an ownership economy. So now that we've covered private keys, let's look at why we need blockchains, decentralized databases or blockchains. The biggest shift in the way we behave on the internet has been the current change in the database structure of the internet. From a Web 2, where we were using centralized servers and databases, to a Web 3, where each copy of the network is stored on different nodes that support the network. In Web 2, Alice was on Facebook, known under her governmental or federate name. She was productized and sold to advertisers as an audience that they could target. In Web 3, she's only known as a public address, and she decides what she shares about her data. Since a centralized database is perfect when you want to sell data, censor users, and control attention via lock-in or network effects, it does come with some pitfalls. It offers a lot of convenience when things go well, but it also contains data breaches and censoring and makes a big shift between the powerful, which are the platform owners, and the powerless, its users, who are being used as a product to advertise against. Now, centralization also happens within governments. A government is another example of it, since it is a central entity that issues, tracks, and controls your identity with the help of governmental trust. Alice, her passport is completely based on governmental trust, and she has to go through her government to share any specific details with other states, doctors, or employers. It is not necessarily a good example of a self-sovereign identity, although many governments, as well as the European Union currently, are taking steps to adopt a self-sovereign identity model, which is very promising. Now, that's why the self-sovereign identity framework makes a clear distinction between three parties instead of mixing them all up under one centralized entity. In a self-sovereign identity framework, we have three players, such as the identity issuer, in this case Litentry, who wants to create trust amongst all participants, the identity holder, such as Alice, who wants maximum privacy and data portability, and the identity verifier, such as a decentralized application or an identity data consumer, who wants proof that the data is truthful and who wants to rely on a trustworthy system. Now, each of these three parties has their own needs and relationship to one another. And exactly the blockchain comes in to create that shared anchor of trust that they all rely on. Alice wants ownership over her data, and she uses Litentry as an identity issuer to issue statements or credentials about her identity onto the Litentry blockchain. The Litentry blockchain acts as a registry that the identity verifier or consumer can read and verify against. By separating each of the parties and using a blockchain as a trust anchor, the data is controlled by your private keys and is always available. The data is fully in your control right now, and the data is always available with the help of decentralized networks or blockchains. So the big question remains, how do we stay pseudonymous on these transparent public blockchains? That's the right question we should answer. How do we do that? Let's dive into the most exciting layer, the privacy layer. Since we're all operating under anonymous public addresses, nobody really knows who is who. And that's a feature, not a bug. Many native crypto users have truly adopted pseudonymity since the beginning, under the lead of Satoshi, one of the inventors of blockchain. All of our data is hiding in a large data universe, and you are invisible as long as you don't shine your own light on it. When you are sharing a public address, you're essentially saying, hey, I'm here. And there's many more data related to that public address on itself. Litentry truly wants to help you lower your privacy risk on a transparent blockchain. So currently, we feel that you are sharing too much information by handing over a wallet address. It's a bit similar as entering the supermarket, and when you're paying for milk, you're showing off all of your bank transactions. That might just be a bit too much. Since sharing wallet address without a second thought reveals your complete Web3 behavior, there is a need to add an additional layer of privacy on public, transparent blockchains. Data analysis and wallet tracking allows others to figure out what wallets, assets, and digital behavior make up your decentralized identity. And this is the privacy risk Litentry is solving. Just like our personal life, our blockchains need this extra layer of privacy, where you can make a clear distinction between the public identity that you're comfortable sharing and the private identity that is yours. With a self-sovereign identity framework on top of Litentry's technology and with the help of blockchains, we got the tools for you to just show what you want, when you want, and to who you want. In industry terms, we call this selective disclosure. Let's zoom a bit deeper into how we make selective disclosure possible for you. What does selective disclosure look like? In Web 2, it might allow you to just reveal that you're over 21 years old when you're trying to enter a club. In Web 3, you're only revealing the actual performance or capabilities or achievements without showing the location where the proof of that capability or achievement is stored, aka a wallet address. Selective disclosure truly helps you to show only your necessary self that is crucial to the specific context that you are in. Selective disclosure also allows Alice to collect and show only the necessary and relevant data points of her decentralized identity, such as her NFT behavior when she is entering an NFT community, or her DAO activity when she's entering a new DAO. In this way, Litentry helps unlock pseudonymous economies, something we are getting very excited about. Economies where you can accrue reputation without being discriminated against. In the case that you are a minority or don't fit the perfect profile of a specific job application, you still have equal chances since you only have to bring your contextual or necessary self. Biases that others might have against you drop when people start to operate under a principle of equality, such as pseudonymity. A pseudonymous economy is rewarding people based on their necessary self or contextual self. A whole self of Alice might look like her nickname given by her mom, the amount of ex-boyfriends she has on Facebook, whether or not she loves cats, and despite the cats that she has, still has allergies. A contextual self of Alice, in the case she's applying somewhere, might look like the amount of GitHub commits she can prove, whether or not she was interested in crypto since 2016, and whether or not she has launched some of her own contracts on any blockchains. We all just want to be judged on our relevant qualities instead of the other person's biases about you. Pseudonymity highlights the qualities that are relevant for the specific context you are in. Now let's have a look at the different digital identities that are out there and that you can adopt. First of all, we have the anonymous secret identity, which is rather a throwaway identity and generated often with a random username, which can't accrue reputation and is easily disposable. We are more in favor of a pseudonymous identity, which is private yet still accrues reputation. It functions under a persistent username such as Satoshi, which was one of the big examples, and offers you the use of a contextual identity. It's harder to cancel such an identity or to discriminate against it. While your government name or public name that you're likely most familiar with is your foundational identity. It's a global identifier or your real name that also can acquire reputation but can also be canceled. It's indexed and trackable by many other parties. It's a searchable public persona and it's hard to change or modify. So how exactly do we make your identity tangible without it being seen? Let's look at our toolset for selective disclosure. These three key principles help us to provide you with the necessary privacy to adopt decentralized identity, such as a trusted execution environment, which is the technology that we have chosen, verifiable credentials, and local and decentralized storage. On our website, we have a great overview of our complete technology stack. Here you can see how a trusted execution environment acts as a data vault that a user can store all of his important sensitive relationships. That trusted execution environment then issues the necessary credentials for you to operate with in the Web3 world without disclosing any of your root accounts. Feel free to explore this overview in the interactive widget that is mentioned on the Learn page. It might provide you with crucial insights and understanding of how a trusted execution environment tech stack works. So let's zoom a bit deeper into what that exactly means. A trusted execution environment is essentially a secure area on a computer's processor, which is separated from the main operating system. The computation within a trusted execution environment is totally invisible from the outside. It stores and computes data with complete integrity and protects it from tampering from the outside. This is the technology that Litentry has used to bring the fragmented identity or the fragmented digital identity of its users safely together and store their sensitive user data in a vault. This vault functionality was chosen as the fundamental approach to guarantee security of data storage and processing. Now, how does a trusted execution environment or a TEE create trust? The TEE is known as a secured machine running a known piece of open source code. Everyone can trust and verify the code that's running on a trusted execution environment. It functions as an independent third party or observer, which everyone can verify that the inputs and outputs of a TEE act according to the open source code that it has been loaded with. A TEE essentially issues little truth statements, which mention that as an independent observer, it can attest that this verifiable credential is true about a certain subject, such as Alice. A TEE is able to issue a truth statement without showing the identity subject to anybody else. These statements are being issued as verifiable credentials that you control as a self-sovereign identity owner. Now let's dive into these interesting credentials that I've been mentioning several times. How will verifiable credentials change your Web3 experience? A verifiable credential comes in many forms, but essentially it's very similar to a digital certificate or an official version or statement about a certain topic and a certain subject. You can look at it as if it's sealed with a wax stamp. And this wax stamp, in our case, is a signage of the credential with a private key of the independent issuer or a trusted execution environment. As an independent observer, the trusted execution environment can tell you that the following information about Alex is true. Signed by yours truly, the trustworthy TEE. A verifiable credential comes in a JSON format, so developers and IT systems can easily work with it. It acts as a data container and is interoperable and modular. Yet, it's hard to read for average users and not necessarily that usable in its current form. That's why a verifiable credential is often also visualized, which makes it visual and readable in front-end systems. It still is interoperable. In this case, it becomes visual and readable. It's still interoperable, but some of the cons of a visualized verifiable credential is that it has some opportunities to be tampered with in the front end. Yet, there is sufficient tooling to verify its original source. And that's the power of verifiable credentials. Since an encrypted version of the credential is always stored on the Litentry blockchain and inside the holder's wallet. So when an identity verifier or an identity consumer wants to verify the credential that they have received independently, they can match it with the proof that is stored on the blockchain. This way, the blockchain acts as this independent anchor of trust between all three parties. Now let's zoom into the last aspect of the technology stack, local storage. Why should we hold our own data? Because you can only be truly independent when you are holding your own credentials. In this case, Alice is storing her credentials in a wallet, which gives her the ability to present the credential to a dApp when she's logging in. The application can then read the blockchain to verify whether the credential is actually a credential that can be trusted. And Litentry is the one who is enabling this whole process by issuing credentials according to the wishes of Alice and writing them to the blockchain. Remember that we wanted you to be able to show what you want, when you want, to who you want. So when you adopt a pseudonymous decentralized identity, your main identifier is the one identity that all of your other identities can hide behind, such as all of your Web3 addresses and Web2 accounts. You can start issuing little achievements or proofs without disclosing the original location of those accounts. And this allows you to hold, select, and share the credentials that you have available or that you're comfortable sharing, all from your main address or identifier that you have chosen. So now we've reached our final destination. Now your data can be owned and shared through verifiable credentials. And we've fulfilled all of the requirements of a self-sovereign identity. The data is in your full control, the data is always available, and the data can be selectively disclosed and is shareable and transportable. Now let's look at how Alice will make use of this complete technology set. Alice has decided to start operating under a pseudonym. She adopted a main identifier and uses 0xAlicia on both Twitter and Discord as her pseudonym. From now on, she proves that she owns those accounts. She stores all of her sensitive data and account relationships inside the trusted execution environment that is protected with a shielding key with the help of the Identity Hub. Only Elisa is able to access her personal data vault and is able to ask the TEE to issue some credentials for her. She generates a couple of verifiable credentials without showing her root accounts. These credentials might show information such as the amount of commitments that she made on GitHub, the amount of followers she has on Twitter, and the amount of Ethereum she had before 2016. So next time that 0xAlicia is logging into an application, she can prove her worth without disclosing her identity or be discriminated against. She can do that with her 0xAlicia.ethereum name or her public or main identifier. From there, she sends the necessary credentials to the receiver or the identity consumer, such as an application. The decentralized application can now verify if the credential that Alice has provided is matching with the corresponding credential on the blockchain. The verifier can see who issued the credential. In this case, it would be Litentry, whether or not it was issued to 0xAlicia, whether or not 0xAlicia has changed it, and whether or not the issuer has revoked it. A last check can be done in the function of whether or not it meets the requirements of the verifier. All of these 5 checks can be run instantaneously as soon as you make use of verifiable credentials, which show the power of this data container and the privacy that can be added on top by making use of trusted execution environments that act as an independent observer to issue truth statements without disclosing the original root account of the user. All boxes are being ticked, and decentralized application has gotten to know more relevant information by asking less from Elisa. She has been able to make her identity tangible without being seen. And this is exactly the identity and privacy layer the Identity Hub will be offering to you soon. We would like to invite you to sign up for beta access and engage more on our Learn and Earn page to discover how you can adopt a decentralized identity. Enjoy.